Shadowbringers is here, ladies and gents, and Dark Knight is the star of the show, but it's not the same as before. What's up guys, RaijinCutman here, and be it old or new, let's take the time to get a good understanding of how to play the new Dark Knight. With the new changes to tank, there is no longer playing defensively or offensively. Tanks are just DPS who can take a hit. That being said, we are still the bona fide magic tank, and by God we're good at it, being able to ignore mechanics that other tanks would have an issue with. But with that said, our physical resist is something to be desired, though not bad. Other tanks just have a better time dealing with them. But with that out of the way, let's get into it. First off, you got a tank stance, or better name, aggro stance. The only reason why you would use this is that you're tanking and you need the aggro. But if you're not, just leave it off, you don't need it. Root no longer affects our DPS or defense, all it does is generate aggro. Let's move on to our combos, or lack thereof. We only have one combo this time. Hard Slash, Siphon Strike, Soul Eater, that's it. We have one AoE combo, Unleash the Stalwart Soul, but the only time you ever want to use this is if there are 3 enemies or more. Now during our combo, we have Siphon Strike, which restores our MP, and Soul Eater, which generates 20 blood. As for our AoE, Stalwart Soul both generates mana and blood when used. Just be sure that when you use them, to not cap out on resources. So since our combos don't generate buffs or place debuffs on enemies, we have to rely on our off-global cooldowns to do all that work for us. So let's get into them. Blood Weapon. For 10 seconds we generate mana and 10 blood per weapon skill hit. During those 10 seconds, you want to get off 5 weapon skills or spells. Unleashed and Stalwart Soul count as spells, if you didn't know. While generating, be sure not to overcap blood or mana, you always want to be spending. Overcapping will lead to a big detriment in our DPS. And we got Delirium. For 10 seconds, we have unlimited use of Blood Spillers and Quietus, as well as very small mana regeneration for use of those 2 skills. I sometimes forget we actually have that. Blood Spiller is a weapon skill that costs 50 blood and has a potency of 600, while Quietus is a weapon skill that costs 50 blood, does a potency of 210, in AoE around you. Plus, you only really want to be using Quietus when you get hit 3 or more enemies. While Delirium is active, you can still use Blood Weapon, but be careful, you cannot spend the blood outside of Living Shadow that you gain through Blood Weapon, so be sure if you use Blood Weapon, you have 50 blood or less. Delirium, like Blood Weapon, being active for 10 seconds, you want to at least get all 5 weapon skills. With defensive buffs, Dark Knights have Dark Mind, which is a boost in magic resist by 20% with a recast timer of 60 seconds, which is pretty low, so you'll be pretty much hitting this for any magic tank bust or any magic move that you want to increase your defense for. So long as they're not actively consecutive. Shadow Wall is your overall tank 30% damage resist. Good use for heavy hitting tank busters or large AoE pulls that you need constant defense for. Just keep in mind it's on a 2-minute cooldown. Dark Missionary is an AoE buff that buffs your entire party with a 10% magic resist. Good use for any kind of stack mechanic or just general raid-wide damage going out. Most raid-wide damage is magical, so you'll be getting a lot of use out of this move. Now we move on to one of the best defensive cooldowns in the game right now that's not an invuln. Blackest Night, a 25% HP shield to you or whoever you throw it on at a cost of 3k mana, allowing you or your party members to shrug off any high damage. If the shield is broken, it allows you to get a free use of one of your shadow moves. So not only is it a 25% HP shield, but if broken, it's free damage. Last but not least, we have Living Dead. For 10 seconds, you'll enter the state of Living Dead. Nothing really happens here, but if you die during these 10 seconds, you'll enter the state of Walking Dead, to which you cannot die for those 10 seconds, but if you're not healed to full, you will die just afterwards. With our offensive buffs and defensive buffs out of the way, let's get on to our off-global attack skill. Let's go over Flood of Shadows and Edge of Shadows. Flood and Edge of Shadows both cost 3k mana, but Edge of Shadows is a single target attack that hits for 500 potency, while Flood of Shadows is a 300 potency attack that hits in a straight line in front of you. Flood of Shadows is a very good AoE tool. You'll get more use out of it if there are 2 or more enemies, as opposed to the other AoEs that require 3 or more. You pretty much only want to be using Edge of Shadows if there's exactly only 1 enemy. The Blackest Night, Flood of Shadows, and Edge of Shadows are your only moves that cost MP. So my recommendation is that you keep about 3000 mana and anything more than that you want to be spending. You keep the 3000 mana for the Blackest Night for oncoming tank busters, as it allows you to ignore oncoming damage, as well as allows you to get your Dark Arts stacks, which allows you a free use of Flutter Edge of Shadows, which is free damage. Even though the Blackest Night is a defensive cooldown, it can be changed into an offensive cooldown, giving you the same potency as Flutter Edge of Shadows. Next we'll move on to the real star of the show, even though Dark Knight's on the cover, Living Shadow. Or, as the community and pretty much anyone who plays Dark Knight can attest to, it's Frey. You summon the avatar of your dark inner self to fight alongside you for 24 seconds. While the tooltip does say 24 seconds, and it does last for 24 seconds, you really only get 18 seconds out of it due to a 6-second startup time that the shadow is not attacking for. This costs 50 blood, and my recommendation is when this ability is about 20 seconds about to be off a cooldown, you keep around 50 blood on you just so you can summon him as soon as the cooldown is up. Just keep in mind, if you understand boss mechanics, so hold on to it in case the boss is about to leave. But you can start it early before the boss comes back to alleviate the 6-second startup time. Plunge is your gap closer, and now you have 2 charges. You can spend one and keep the other one. Or if you have no reason to use the other one, say there's no knockbacks or nothing to get away from, you spend them both. Salted Earth is an AoE that you put on the ground that does damage over the duration of the time Salted Earth is placed on the ground. You want to make sure that you keep the boss under this move at all times. If the boss moves, or you need to move, just hold on to it and then place it afterwards. And last, Abyssal Drain and Carbon Spit. They're pretty much free attack damage cooldowns. Pretty much after your opener, you want to be using them on cooldown. So there's no reason really not to, even if the boss is about to leave or anything like that, just throw it out when it comes off a cooldown. If they leave during the cooldown, well, it's on cooldown. And that's everything the kit has to offer. So if you want a way to put it together, I can show you an opener I use that I've done pretty well with. Though I cannot say this will be the end all be all, I can at least show you what it is and my thought process going into it. If you're the main tank, which I love to be, start off with an Unmen, then use a potion. Heart Slash, Blood Weapon to Edge of Shadow. No matter how high your skill speed is, I feel like Edge of Shadow has no animation lock, or very little to be of concern. Now the reason why I use a potion before Blood Weapon and not Blood Weapon to Edge of Shadows is because the Unmanned walk-up time can mess with your Blood Weapon timing and not allow you to get your 5 seconds. That's why I use a potion first. Then I use Siphon Strike, put down Salted Earth, another Edge of Shadow. Soul Eater, Plunge to Delirium. Then I use Blood Spiller, and then I use Living Shadow here. At this point, the ninja's trick attack should be about to be up, thus using it early allows you to have that startup time not be during a ninja trick attack duration. This is assuming that the trick attack timings are still the same in Shadowbringers as it is Stormblood. I use another Blood Spiller, then I use Abyssal Drain to another Edge of Shadows. Another Blood Spillers, and this is just, you could rearrange Abyssal Drain and Carbon Spit, but I use Carbon Spit next after Abyssal Drain, just to make sure that the ninja has their trick attack up, and you can hit it during. Edge of Shadows, Blood Spiller, Plunge, Blood Spiller, Edge of Shadows, and then go into your normal combos. Heart Slash, Siphon Strike, Soul Eater. From then on, every ability you want to be used is on cooldown. Now during the opener, you can swap out one of the Edge of Shadows with the Blackest Night if needed for that early tank buster. The damage will equal out to be the same. Dark Knight itself isn't a complex job to play, but when it comes to higher level of mastery, every little bit counts. So I hope with this video you have at least gained a middle ground of understanding of how the new Dark Knight works, or at least enjoyed the content of which I have to offer. I'm always very accepting of any discussions down below of anything you might have learned or anything you might want to share about Dark Knight that I didn't really get into with this video. I know I skipped over some small details, but those are details that didn't really matter when it comes to gaining at least a middle ground of understanding. If you want more Dark Knight action, I always stream from 5 PM to 10 PM Eastern Standard Time, so feel free to come on by and say hi. Thank you for taking the time to come and watch my video. In the near future, I'm hoping to upload some more guides, be it dungeons, raids, or boss guides. So feel free to subscribe if you want more content from me. But with that, this has been RaijinCutman, and I'll see you in the next video.